is over.
Hey guys, we are here for the Insiders interview, and we have got a special interview tonight for you guys. My friend, a good friend of mine, Shane Brennan, is on with us tonight. Shane is a guy who used to wrestle in the Indies locally around here. He's got a gimmick called Showtime Shane Black, and so he's joining us tonight. Shane, man, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Jeff. Joe, thank you for having me on.
You got it, my friend.
Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, man.
Not a problem.
So I guess we'll get started. We'll start at the beginning here. So when did you get started with pro wrestling?
1995. Not that I want to date my age or anything. I was still working at Circuit City just before I met you, Joe.
Yep.
And I'd wanted to do wrestling for forever, but it's one of those things where you don't know. Back then, you didn't know how to get your foot in the door. It wasn't just easier as it is today. But one of the managers at Circuit City said, "Oh, I live down the road from a wrestling school." And I said, "You what?" And 2 weeks later, I was at the Wild Samoan Training Center interviewing with Alpha, and then that was it.
That's
Took
right,
their
man.
passed their tryout, and I was in. I've been doing it now for 20 plus years.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know Shane trained Jeff with the Wild Samoans.
Holy crap, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, Alpha and Sika, Samu.
Man.
Baga was there. I've had the pleasure of wrestling with a lot of big guys because of the Samoans. The Rock, Dave Bautista actually knocked one of my teeth out. Every time I bump into him, I still bring that up every now and again. He laughs at me and tells me to go away.
Oh, man.
He worked you a little snug, huh?
Dave started with us. Do you guys remember a TV program on MTV, So I Want to Be A? And they did a pro wrestler. Dave was supposed to be on that, but they told him he was too old.
Wow.
This is about the same time I went to MTV and did a thing, and that's when I met Carson Daly, and he's an asshole. Pardon my French, I apologize. But we did an MTV thing there, and that wasn't a travesty. But they said Dave was too old. They took some other guy, and that guy died of drugs. But then Dave wound up coming from Buffalo to the Samoans and trained with us. And Dave was an awesome, awesome guy. I really can't say enough about the man. The time I had pleasure to meet him, but and when he came in, and just before we started, Jeff, you and I were talking a little bit about the training. Wrestling training is a whole other animal, and people don't get that. And even Dave Bautista came from us from the World Bodybuilding Federation. Dave's first day, I made Dave throw up. I've never met anyone that hasn't gone through the tryouts and the working out and hasn't puked.
Exactly.
Because the Samoans training platform was brutal. And sadly, I still do some of it today. You had the training. You were faint before you left. You were pale. And for those folks that don't know what they go through, it's a lot of endurance training. We would start off with 100 squats, 25 leg lifts, 25 sit-ups, 25 push-ups, back to 100 squats until we hit 1,000 squats. And then we started running. It was a nightmare.
How long did they make you run the ropes?
We ran the ropes for quite a bit. We did the drill called 3 Minutes in Hell.
Yep.
Which very few people have ever seen finish. And a lot of folks in a 20-foot ring running the ropes 15 times equivalent to a mile.
Mm-hmm.
So you hit that and it goes. So I loved running ropes. I still do now. It's one of my favorite things to do when I get in the ring. When I go to a new federation or promotion, it's one of the first things I do is hit the ropes to make sure if they're rope, if they're cable, if they're loose, or if they're tight.
Yeah. Yeah, Lord knows with the loose ones, oh my goodness, I can't stand the loose ropes.
And that's a whole other aspect that people that aren't inside wrestling don't realize is the ropes themselves can be pretty brutal.
Mm-hmm.
When you start, I remember back in the 90s when I started, I'm changing my shirt. My mother was like, "What's wrong with your back?" Because I had saucer-sized bruises on my back from running ropes right under the shoulder blades. She's like, you can't go. I'm like, I'm still going back.
Well, I do want to ask you a question about training. Another question. What was your initial thought when you took your first bump?
I can't breathe.
Yeah.
Because I've always in my life with everything been a little bit of a show off, and they showed me how to do it. And they said, bend down a little bit and fall to your back. But I just jumped and I hit and I went, ugh. And I was getting bad. And they're like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm good. And I remember, all right, I got to do that better because I can't friggin' breathe. And I banged my head off the canvas. So I made it to like, I'm not going to do that again the second time the wrong way. And by the end of my first tryout, Alpha actually asked me if I'd done it before. And I told him no. And that's when they said, well, you passed, so you can go to the school. But that first initial bump, I remember not being able to breathe for a couple of seconds after to knock the wind clear out of myself.
Yeah, because, I mean, what a lot of people, and I want you to kind of speak to this too, what a lot of people don't realize is the ring is not as soft as they think it is.
No.
It's not very forgiving. So that's why. Go ahead.
There are some newer rings that I've always referred to as high spot rings that a little bit more spring to them.
Mm-hmm.
But what I trained in was literally the wrestling ring from WrestleMania 3. And actually, I had a local federation here. I bought that ring off Samu. That was just steel beams. There was no spring. It was a cross beam, and then 4 beams in that, and then the inch plywood, that inch matting you get in high school, and then the canvas. So it was like landing on a hardwood floor, and people don't get that. And I'd have guys come out of area to wrestle my shows and hit the ring and go, what the hell is this? I'm like, this is real wrestling. They hated that ring. I loved it.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Was that the same ring that we actually saw that time with the bachelor party that we visited?
Yes, that was the wrestling ring from WrestleMania 3.
That's crazy, dude. I had no idea.
Yeah, I don't know how true this story is, and I say that because I want to get anybody in trouble. But Vince McMahon has places all over the country with stores, wrestling rings and stuff. And Alpha once told us that he needed a ring, so he just went and said, I need a ring. I'm taking this one. And he just took it. And since, he was still under contract and stuff, I guess they let him, but he never gave it back. So he had that ring the entire time I was with him in WXW. And then eventually I bought it off Samu and used it for a couple of years in my local fed, PWA. And I actually just sold it to Supremely Great, who runs the Sanctuary in Hazleton.
Oh, yeah, okay.
He actually, because he's got a newer ring, but he used that other one as part of his just his stage in general. He did a nice job with it.
That's
so
awesome.
It's still in the area.
There you go. The classic is still around. That's a WrestleMania 3, too, of all of them. That's like one of the best ones that there ever was.
Samu, I think, still has some of the boards because a lot of the boys had signed some of them. So he replaced those because they were getting cracked up, but he's got the signatures, I believe, still in storage.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow, man, that's crazy. So, Shane, you got to tell us about, now you wrestled Shawn Michaels.
No, I never had the opportunity.
Okay. I thought you did. I'm trying to think of some of the stories because I know.
I wrestled Christian. I've wrestled
Christian, yes. Okay.
Batista, Little Guido, the Great Fujita out of Japan, The Rock. Cripes, at this point, I've forgotten more than I can remember. The Inferno Kid, Tommy Dreamer. I call him Pete, Billy Kidman. And what the hell was Kidman's buddy's name? The big Mortis.
Yeah.
Because both of those guys came from off of school as well.
Wow.
My first week of training, after I got through that horrible training or the tryout, we're doing our bumps and stuff, and like I was telling Jeff, you're knocking the wind out of yourself. And Alpha says, "Okay, son, I want you to relax, just close your eyes and breathe." I thought he had some kind of breathing stuff to go on. No. Yokozuna was in his office and came out and said, "Okay, no, don't move." And I got leg dropped. And I peed a little bit. because I just saw red. His leg covered my entire face.
Wow.
It was terrifying. But Rodney was a hell of a nice guy. He laughed at me because I looked white as a ghost. Because he saw the fear, and that was their gag. They just wanted to scare the hell out of us to see if we'd stay or if we'd go.
Wow, man, that's nuts. That's crazy. Now, I know you know some of the guys that are out there today. I think I was talking to you about Orange Cassidy.
Yeah. Well, the first, did you make it to the first PWA show I did in Nanticoke?
I think I was, yes.
The main event, I wrestled with two guys, and the one guy went by the name Fire Ant. He was out of Chikara. That was Orange Cassidy.
Was it really?
Orange Cassidy was in the colony of Chikara, and he's a phenomenal wrestler and just got a great attitude. So it's really cool to see him doing the character he wanted to do and get to do exactly what he wants in AEW. There's a bunch of guys that I know from Chikara in AEW, and it's great to see them getting to do what they want to do. Honestly, if I was 10 years younger, I'd probably try to get in myself and take a run.
That's awesome, man.
I'll be 46 in a few weeks, so I'm not going to take a shot.
I hear you, buddy. I hear you. Oh, man. Yeah, Cassidy's got a cool, like, what he does, he's got such a fan following, and it's like it just stands there, sticks his hands in his pockets, and he wrestles with his hands in his pockets.
And that's what I love is some people don't like it, and they bitch he's just a gimmick, but he's not. He can work with the best of them. He's got phenomenal in-ring ability, but it's hidden behind that ridiculous, goofy gimmick until they see him work.
Yep. Yeah, he wrestled Pac, wasn't it? Against Pac, and it was a really good match. Yeah. Man, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
if you go back on YouTube and look at some of his stuff, just from an in-ring perspective, I mean, he's off the charts. I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is to pull off a gimmick like he's pulling off, you actually have to be pretty darn good in the ring to do that, to back it up. So, I mean, it's not like he just showed up one day and said, I'm gonna stick my thumb halfway up and put my hands in my pocket. I mean, you got to be a pretty legit wrestler to do something like that.
What impresses me with his gimmick is just running the ropes with his hands in his pockets.
Yeah.
Because you use your arms in case you slide between the ropes and the ropes break to hold on, to balance yourself, to build momentum. And he's doing that all with his damn hands in his pocket. Yeah. That alone, what people don't get, is a lot of skill.
Yes. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous just to watch him work in the ring and how he does certain moves. And like you said, I mean, you think about it from, when we trained, how difficult it was to do certain things. And he's just doing it, like you said, with his freaking hands in his pocket. And I mean, he's just all over the place. And I mean, just forget about the stuff over the top rope and all the high spots that he's doing.
Yeah, that it's a lot of folks don't realize just some of the simple stuff in wrestling, the basic stuff is not just so easy to do, but in today's world, it's overlooked because of the high spots and the moonsaults and the 450 splashes. They don't get the international spots in the small stuff. Nobody appreciates that stuff anymore.
Right, that's right. So I do want to ask you this because, I want to take people a little further inside of a match. If you could just talk a little bit about the anatomy of a match and, psychology approaching it and, like how you kind of determine what you're going to do based on opponent and based on the crowd.
Usually for me, that's always been, I find out what the promoters are doing, if I'm face, if I'm heel, and that'll push for me a lot of what I plan on doing. And I'm not one of the guys that likes to plan out the entire match ahead of time. I like to do the spots here and there and call about 50-50. 50% of it is getting your spots in. The other 50% is, for me, is calling it in the ring.
Yeah.
But the psychology of it is for me pretty straightforward, for lack of a better term. But if I'm the heel out there, my job is to get that face over and get myself over. And if I'm the heel, most times I'm doing the job that night. But a lot of folks think it's the win or loss that gets a wrestler over, and it's not. And that's always my biggest thing. Make sure I get in the spots I want to get that are going to wow the crowd, even if they're not high spots, just small stuff that's going to catch their eye. So normally I'll get with the guy that I'm going to work with, ask him what he wants to do, what signatures he wants in the match, how he wants to put it, what do they want to do for the finish, if the promoters have a special finish or a screw job finish or someone's going over straight, and work from that. And I really like to have a nice conversation and go back and forth with that guy to make sure both, because a wrestling match is two guys working together. It's a team effort to put on a performance for the audience. So I like to make sure both guys are happy, not saying, well, I want to do this and I don't care what you say, because then someone's going to be shitty and you're going to have a bad match.
Right.
So I like to have that conversation and incorporate everything we can into a match. And I've always been a guy, I don't like a 5-minute wrestling match. I need to be out there 15, 20 minutes, even though I'm exhausted by the end of it.
Yeah.
Because I like to sell. So that's always part. And Joe brought up Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is the reason I got into professional wrestling, between him and Randy Savage. So I watched Shawn Michaels, and he's, to me, one of the best sellers that's ever been in the industry. So I took a lot of that. So a lot of times I'll tell the guys, just start waylaying, start hammering me, because I want to sell those moments. And that's me trying to get myself over with those motions, not hitting a guy with a power bomb or a pile driver or drop kick from the top. Me selling gets me over with the audience, win or lose.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Right.
Obviously, hence your character name. Showtime
Yes.
Shane Black had to come from the. You must have had a little Shawn Michaels influence in that.
You know what? I'll tell you a funny story about that, Joe. But when I first started wrestling, I didn't have a name because I wasn't ready to go out there yet. And this was actually in Freeland, PA.
Oh, yeah.
I was just there to help set up the ring, help do the stuff backstage because I wasn't done training yet. Someone else didn't make it to the show. And Alpha goes, son, do you want to go out there tonight? I'm like, I don't know. He goes, well, tough shit, you're going out there. So I had to borrow someone else's singlet. I had to borrow someone else's boot, and they sent me out there. I just went out there in my regular name. I had no idea. It was a terrible match from my aspect because I wrestled a guy named the Wolfman who was hairless. He had no hair on his head, nothing. So I couldn't understand why he's the Wolfman. At one point, he bites my shoulder because that was his gimmick, but he still had friggin' tobacco in his mouth.
Oh.
So he's drooling tobacco on my shoulder.
Oh.
He went over that night. I walked backstage. Alpha goes, you were amazing, son. You're on the next show. You need a name. So I came up with another gimmick I had, which people busted my chops, told me I was a mini Undertaker. And I did that. That was Kale I did him for a couple years. And then I wanted to change it because I wanted more mic work. I wanted to be a little bit more flashy. I definitely wanted to go heel because I'd done face forever. And I had a couple names, but I was sitting with my buddy, Jim Shaw. You know Jim.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I was actually playing an old wrestling game. And we're going through what they announced people of. And the name Showtime was there. And he goes, that's what you got to use. And that's where I got the name Showtime, was from a video game.
Oh, geez. That's awesome.
And it just took off. And it got to the point where I was the heel. But the guy, Dylan Dean, was my manager at the time. He would yell Showtime. The audience would yell Shane Black. They're supposed to hate me, but they just wound up getting behind the character. And it just took off. I've been doing them 20 years until I'm thinking I'm going to retire the character this year and do the new one that I was talking to you about earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's crazy. I know. You had valets for a little while, I know.
Yeah.
You had
The gig got pretty big. I did it in PA, Jersey, Maryland, all the tri-state area. I worked with that gimmick, and it got over no matter where it went. Whereas face or heel, and if I was heel most times, I just let them beat the shit out of me. I still got over with the crowd.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how long? So yeah, you said how long you've been doing it. How long? How many years has it been now since you've been out?
I think the longest hiatus I took was about 5 or 6 years after my mother died, but I was still at Best Buy.
Okay.
And then intermittently I'd go back to say, hey, because I'm a sucker for doing charity events. If someone says, hey, we're doing a fundraiser, I'm like, I'll do it. Because those are usually just fun. It's nothing overly serious. You can interact with the crowd a lot more. So I was doing those sporadically. And then when I started my I think it's 2 or 3 years I had the training center here in Wilkes-Barre.
Yep.
A lot of fun with that. And then when that went under due to bad business partners, I took about another year or two off. And then my buddy, Supremely Great, said, hey, we're doing a reunion show. You want to come down? I'm like, yeah, sure. Next thing you know, there's 8 of us down there. And that spiraled into, let's do another show. Let's do another show. Let's do another show. Another guy from the WXW alumni says, hey, can you come and be a booking agent for me? Oh, bring your tights. We need you to wrestle. And then it's just spiraled out of control again. I'm like, well, I'm back again. And that's where the new character I plan on doing, which is I've wanted to do for a long time, was a full mask gimmick, a full mask wrestler. So that's the new thing I'll be doing as soon as this pandemic is over and I can get back in the ring.
I know he showed me some pictures of that online. It's pretty awesome. I like the look of it. It was pretty funny.
I can't.
Yeah,
it's just going to be fun for me.
Now so tell us a little bit about. I know you started before we go there. So what do you think? I mean, it's always good. We like to get wrestlers' opinions of this stuff on the show. So what do you think about wrestling today? I mean, there's so many choices out there now. There's so many shows on. I mean, we talk mostly about WWE. We talk about NXT, NWA on YouTube that came back. We both like, actually, because of the classic and, going back to the old Saturday morning stuff. Obviously, AEW. What do you think of wrestling today? I mean, do you think it's going in a good direction? Or, I mean, do you still watch? And if so, like, what do you like about it?
I watch. I don't watch as much WWE as I used to, mainly because there's some guys that really deserve a push and a spotlight. They don't get it.
Yep.
I love watching NXT, and the reason I like watching NXT is because if you're in wrestling, and you're doing the indies and you're doing shows like that, you can see when a wrestler has influence over WWE tryout. They pretty much tell you what you're doing. I mean, they have their booking agents, the face is going over tonight, the heel's going over. But in today's day and age, I still like WWE, but I don't like the direction they're taking with some of their storylines. And I think the biggest problem there is they get TV writers to do their storylines and not enough people who know the ins and outs of professional wrestling. And NXT, to me, is, even though it's got new style and new moves and stuff in the high spots, they have that, I can't think of a better term than the old school style storylines where it's this guy versus this guy. Like the whole Lana and Bobby Lashley bullshit was horrible.
Yes,
it was horrible.
Yep, I agree.
And everything I'm seeing on WWE right now, par for a few storylines, is just the same thing they did 10 years ago. Because I honestly think they're out of ideas. Like the movie business, I think they need to let the wrestlers themselves have more input. One thing I'd love to see in any wrestling federation is them actually talk about a ranking division or rankings of the wrestlers and use that as a catalyst for a lot of storylines. This guy's ranked number 2. This guy's ranked number 7. Well, screw that. I want to be ranked number 2. And you can start feuds just based on who wants to get to the championship instead of a guy that just showed up, comes out, punches the champion. Oh, he's number 1 contender.
Yeah, it's a good point. AEW looked like they were going to try that, but then it really never went anywhere.
No, I think this pandemic thing has really thrown a loop into everybody.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things I like about AEW is they take chances with their storylines. Even though you don't have the audience, watching Chris Jericho argue with a drone had me in tears. And the stuff I still watch now, I watch a lot of New Japan. I watch AEW. I still follow Chikara on YouTube. And I really wish Quackenbush would get himself a TV show. He turned it down from what I understand. Chikara is phenomenal wrestling. That's where Orange Cassidy came from. Yep. I watch those guys a lot. NXT. I'll watch WWE sporadically. Most times I record it and I watch the guys I want to watch and the girls I want to watch.
Yep.
But I can't watch the whole show anymore. And it to a part, it depresses me. Because that's what I grew up with. AWA, WCW, and WWE. And it's just, when you watch a 3-hour program and there's only like 4 matches, that's what gets me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I miss that. And that's why I like NXT. They really seem to have more of the guys let them work out their own matches. And you see stuff that Vince won't let the guys do. You know,
Yeah.
The day he finally friggin' retires and lets Triple H take it over, I think it'll be better.
Yeah, Jeff and I have spoken about that. We were talking about that too. Now, who knows? I mean, it's all over the news. They might get bought. So they maybe Disney owns WWE somewhere down the line. They own everything else. So would not be surprised if that happens.
No.
It would be a time for him to bail. So yeah, man. All right. Well, listen, tell everybody, I know you are not only are you a wrestler, but you are on, you have your own gaming stream now. And it's a wrestling gaming stream. So talk to everyone out there about how you came up with this. Cause I actually found this story pretty fascinating. You came up with something a long time ago and now you translate it into a gaming thing that you do.
Yeah. I spoke a little bit about my buddy Jim Shaw before. Him and I we've always made our own board games at home, and we made a wrestling game that like 8 of us played just every week as our own. It was our own promotion, and we did it for fun. And then eventually we started selling copies locally. We produced it, printed out ourselves, got folders, shrunk wrap everything, and sold it. We used to sell to Gema Books. You remember Gema Books?
Oh yeah, bookstore. Yeah.
And yep, Gene took it and he sold a bunch of copies for us. And then we stopped, and then I've always played the wrestling video games. I've always been a big gamer since I was a kid. And with WWE, the 2K series, you can make your own universe. And I pretty much go in there and delete everyone from WWE and I make my own wrestling. And I started making the characters because we had 25 to 30 characters in that board game. So I started making them all. And I was just playing it for fun. And then a buddy of mine said, one day he's talking to me and I just showed him some pictures. He goes, "You should start streaming." I said, "What are you talking about?" Because I've never really watched a lot of game streams.
Yep.
But he showed me his, and he does a lot of Resident Evil stuff. I'm like, well, this is fun. So I just started some streaming stuff, and I stream more than the wrestling game, but that's the one that's really taken off. And it's called XFW, Extreme Fantasy Wrestling. And now I'm up just under 100 characters because people are submitting characters to us to get us on the shows we do, because we do it 4 nights a week now. And it's just taken off, and it's a fully produced digital wrestling program with all its original storylines. I'm doing the commentary through the whole thing. And it's just become a lot of fun. It's become insane to a point where if I'm late on a certain night or don't do a show, people are going, "Where is it? Where are you? What's going on?" So it's taken on its own life, which is hilarious. But it's on Facebook and Twitch. You can search Bloodsword 6 streaming. And if you just Google Bloodsword 6, it's the first thing that pops up now on Google, which is insane.
Yeah, that's all. I've watched some of them. And I think I was talking to Jeff a little bit about it yesterday, and I was telling him that it's almost like you're watching an old wrestling federation, because then you'll cut out of the match and then you'll come on as the announcer, like they would do the old cutaways from the commercials when the announcing team would come on after the matches.
And that's one of the things I miss from some of the new shows. And that's why I said I'm playing a full-on character. Even though I use my own name, I'm in character through the whole program because I talk about the characters as if they're real, as if they exist. We adapted a little bit of the absurdity of some characters, like the old when the 90s were there and the Undertaker was supernatural and mysterious and actually had quote unquote powers. We used some of the goofiness in the game to do that same kind of stuff. So during XFW, it's full-on character. It's interactive with the fans that are watching because the chat comes up on the window.
Yep.
People suggest matches. I'm actually doing a big show this Saturday, what we call pay-per-views, even though it's still free. And I have 2 characters with giant handlebar mustaches, and a lot of fans in our chat room said, "We need a mustache versus mustache match." So that's going to happen Saturday night between these 2 characters because that's what everyone wants to see. And I actually got into a small dispute with the WWE's social media team.
I remember that. You got bounced off of Facebook, I think, didn't
you? They blocked me. They had me shut down for nearly a week.
Oh,
it started off because, I guess there was some kind of big music dispute with WWE and the guys that do their entrance themes. But I wound up on the radar because some of my fans were actually tweeting right at WWE, "This show on Facebook is better than Monday Night Raw."
Oh, jeez.
And they kept tweeting at him, and they kept deleting them. And a few weeks after that, all of a sudden, every nook and I used to share some videos in the middle of my stream, and a lot of it was fun WWE stuff. If I would hit play, within seconds, your stream has been blocked by WWE. Wow. I had the images because, like, did this really just happen? So I cut out all in-game music, and I used my own original music that I get off some programs, and I can't share. There's so many clips from WWE on YouTube, but you can play them and share them. And if I put them in my stream, they will shut my shit down. I am on their radar in a bad way.
Oh man, yeah, I know. I came on a couple times, and I'm looking to see, and I've seen comments and you saying that, oh, I got shut down by WWE again.
Yep, I got a lot of the fans that come in, and because I do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, and a lot of times I'm on the same time as the wrestling shows. And they're like, "Yeah, I'm not watching SmackDown. I'm watching XFW." I'm like, that is a massive compliment. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
And there's people that get behind some of the characters and they really follow them. So it's a lot of it's work. It's a lot of work than I thought it was, but it's a lot of fun to do. And yeah. I'm glad people are enjoying it. It keeps me in wrestling without having to bump as much for myself. But it's a lot of fun. I'm glad people hooked onto it. I'm glad it's taking off like it was. It's in the followers are going up and up and up and up. So right now I'm just on Facebook and Twitch. I'm hoping I can get a multi-stream and then start doing it on I upload videos to YouTube, but I want to get the live show going on YouTube as well shortly. Yeah.
It's streaming that stuff. Yeah, I mean it's a big thing now. There's so many gamers that stream, and I know you do other stuff on there besides the wrestling stuff too. I've watched you do. I know you have that Transformers game on there. I know you've done other games on there as well.
Yeah, I do Call of Duty. I do the Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 right now. Spider-Man PS4. Any Mortal Kombat, because I'll be playing Mortal Kombat again as soon as RoboCop drops. That made me almost do cartwheels for joy yesterday. Out. But I do a lot of games on there, but the wrestling one is really, really taken off and resonated with a lot of people. And that's just awesome for me, just to see people enjoy this. And I put the most work into that wrestling game. So it's just fun for me. I'm glad they like it.
That's awesome, man. I know people were asking you, because 2K20, everybody was saying was a big disaster. Now, see, I didn't find that a problem. Like, did you run into problems when you transferred it over to 20?
I've had some glitches here and there.
Okay.
Not as many as the people freaked out about. I didn't have a lot of the big, like the graphics with the hair going all wonky. Yeah. I've had some issues here and there. I've seen some clothing parts be a little weird. The biggest issue I have is sometimes mostly in-game crashes. While I'm playing it, the game will actually shut down. I got to reboot it. But for me, it's only made me more creative because now I'm starting to make my own commercials. So when the game crashes, I can play commercials while I'm getting the game back up and running.
Oh, there you go. That's
so I actually there was a group of characters that the fans have a love-hate relationship called the Thunderbolts. And Jim Shaw, who will do commentary with me, likes to make up these very elaborate, ridiculous stories about characters. So we wind up coming up with their manager, Dr. Yamamoto, who does cyborg work on people. So they're all cyborg wrestlers now. We actually made a commercial for Yamamoto Industries, and it's talking about how he can build you a better body and stuff. And people are like, that is amazingly creepy. Like, well, that's what we're going for. So when the game crashes, up comes this Yamamoto Industries commercial. I took the old 1980s Muscle Men commercial, threw that in there.
Oh, yeah.
Just a bunch of stuff to keep people occupied while 2K20 reboots.
That's awesome. That's awesome, dude. Let's say, oh, that's a good idea. It gets you around stuff like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, you've got I said streaming is a lot of fun. I didn't think it was going to be as much work as it is. And when I've got the guys over and they're doing the commentary with me, the big events, they're like they're like, I can't believe how much you have to do this. Because normally I'm usually playing the game, I'm doing the commentary, and the programming is like a small movie TV studio. So you're doing editing live on the fly as you're doing it. And other games, I don't have to do that. I can just play the game, I'm good. But the XFW, you're switching from the game stream back to the commentary booth, back to this thing, back to it's a lot.
Yeah, I could see
that. But it's a good time. It's worth it.
Well, that's awesome, man. Yeah, we're gonna let Shane's gonna tell everybody how they can find that a little later on, because I know there's a lot of people that are gamers out in the community, and and would enjoy it. Like I said, it's a wrestling league. Essentially, Shane does the commentary on there and stuff like that. It's just like you're watching an actual show. So yeah, that's awesome, man. That's really cool that you're having success with that. And it is a big thing. Twitch and any gaming stream, really. I know I was talking to some friends online, and they were like, man, if we could only had this about 10 years ago.
Yeah, no shit.
When a lot of us were huge into this stuff. I mean, my goodness, I played, oh my God, I spent like months of my life playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
And here I could have streamed it. And this
we may not have to have regular jobs today if this was out when we were younger.
That is true.
And that's now my goal now.
Oh man, that's awesome, dude. That's awesome. So, Jeff, do you have anything else you want to ask Shane? I know because Jeff's obviously more into the wrestling side of it, and he, knows much more than me because he's involved back with wrestling now. I know he's involved in his own promotion as well. So, anything else you have for Shane?
Well, a couple things in terms of just the gaming aspect, because I would love to get into gaming. Right now, my son has the Xbox, so that is what it is. But in terms of gaming, and especially with the wrestling and all of that, I mean, do you find yourself like being able to kind of relive some of those earlier days of wrestling through what you're doing now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because I just don't play the game. I actually try to work spots into every match based on the characters themselves. I will literally, and I'm playing against the computer. I put on the hardest level because I'll give certain characters a push. Jeff, you'll know what the term is behind that.
Yeah.
But I don't want that to always just be the way the dictates. So I play on that, but I will literally put together spots, drop down, leapfrog, into the corner, over the ropes, just to keep it more entertaining. And there's a lot of wrestling shows on Facebook, but I think the reason mine differs is because of what I know inside the ring from being an actual professional wrestler. I put that into the matches that I put on the stream. So I do relive a lot of stuff through that. And I think that's why mine resonates a little bit more with people than others.
Right. That's awesome. I mean, the fact that you can do that, I honestly wish that I could do something similar to that, because I'm going to go check it out, but I mean, it's, that's awesome that you're doing that. And like you said earlier, I mean, you're not bumping as much as you used to. So, but you still get to have that part of the business.
Yeah. I've always liked the creative aspect in wrestling of putting together a match, working things back and forth with someone else, and putting something together that people enjoy. And I still get that from this. And like I said, I'm thinking of retiring Showtime Shane Black, and the next gimmick, the character I'm going to do in the actual ring is going to be named the Maniacal Glee. And he is literally from this video game. He is someone we made a decade ago and always had fun with. And we've always made the joke, oh, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And I reached out to a wrestling mask place and just sent them an image of the game. Said, can you put this mask together? And they said, yes. And 3 weeks later, I had this amazing mask that is absolutely awesome. And I'm able to put the rest of the outfit together. And now I'm just wait for this damn pandemic to be over so I can actually wrestle again as this totally new character. And it's just going to be balls out fun for me.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome,
it's giving me a creative aspect both inside and outside of the ring. So yeah, it's bringing back my glory days for me.
Awesome.
If you'll see, go ahead. You'll see what you could. I was just gonna say, you'll see when you watch it, because one of the things I noticed was, like, a lot of times in these Twitch streams, players that play it are almost too good. And when they're too good at it, what I mean by that is they'll play through it, but you can't really follow it because they're going through it really quickly. They're beating what they beat, and it's over in like a split second. But if you watch Shane's League, it's almost like you're watching an actual wrestling match. Whereas some people would do it, and they would they take a character that they like and they'd win the match in like 5 seconds. he draws it out almost like it's a scripted match.
You need the drama. You need the drama. You need that psychology of the match.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I saw. Go ahead, Jeff. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. I guess my last question would be kind of going back to the in-ring stuff, just to have a little bit of fun here. What's the worst gimmick you've ever seen as a wrestler?
Oh, good Lord. That could be a whole other podcast.
I figured that.
Oh, dear Lord. I have seen some shit in my 20-some years. I have seen guys come out, and I'm like, why? What are you doing? And right now, I can't remember all the names, but I've seen guys come out with gear going, okay, that's cool looking. What's the name? And their name is way off. I'm like, well, that doesn't make with you. Oh, I just wore this because I think it's cool. But that doesn't make any sense. I mean, we've all seen the big guys on the big shows, the Yeti.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the Shockmaster and shit like that come out.
Yes.
I actually wrestled with a guy. His gimmick I thought was kind of funny. At the same time, like, they probably shouldn't be doing this. He was a heel. He was a reverend. He would walk out with a collection plate and put it in front of fans' faces, and they were putting change and shit in it.
Oh, man.
And all of a sudden, the wrestling commission and the place said, you can't do this, because he was keeping that money.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
Like, holy shit. But yeah, he was keeping it. And I've seen guys, and I'm sure you have, Jeff, doing this, so many guys with very lazy gimmicks.
Yes.
Where they're just wearing their jeans and a T-shirt, and they're not putting any effort into it. And then they get pissed off when they don't get a push, or the fans don't give a shit. But they think, well, I'm good in the ring, but it's not just the performance. It's a persona. It's a presentation. So I've seen some guys that have worn their singlets or their costumes that don't fit, that don't work, or they've got a hole in their ass cheek and it's poking out.
Man.
Yep.
Or the guys that would never wash their knee or their elbow pads and it smelled like.
Oh, gosh.
Oh.
Man, being in the locker room and being around guys like that don't wash their crap, don't wash their gear. Oh, my God.
It's not uncommon. It's sad. I knew guys that wouldn't wash. Well, it's bad luck if I wash my knee pads. What are you talking about? And then they put you in a leg lock like, you son of a bitch, I can smell last Tuesday. Stop.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
The gimmicks,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
The gimmicks I've seen over the year, it is chaotic. And I've seen, I can honestly say I've probably seen more good than bad. But the bad ones are the ones that just, you look and you go, holy shit, why?
Yes.
And I remember there was a guy back in my WXW days. He was a great dude. He was awesome. He was great to work in the ring. He just called himself Pinky. And he had a tie-dye top hat and a cane and jeans. I'm like, I don't get this. He was a good worker. His work rate was great. His in-ring stuff was great. But I'm like, what is Pinky? And that was it. He didn't have, it wasn't a first name or a last name. It was just Pinky.
Was he trying to be a pimp with the top hat? And
it was almost like a very hippie-ish.
Okay, yeah, that makes no sense.
And that's where I never going to insult the guy about it. Like, you know what? I'm just going to go along. It's his thing, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I've seen some guys with some really great gimmicks over the years. But yeah, the bad ones have a tendency to stand out and just say, what the F?
Yes, they do. And one that I saw, and I wish I was joking, but I'm not. This guy, I actually worked with him a couple times. He called himself the Skeleton. No, not joking. He called himself the Skeleton. And his gear was like, you remember as kids, for Halloween, they'd have like the sweatpants and the long sleeve shirt with the skeleton on it.
Yep.
That's what he wore.
Oh my God.
And
you mean the clothes with the bones printed on them?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
That's horrible.
Yeah. And he wore like a mask that you could buy from Walmart during Halloween. And I'll never forget. We wrestled. He was wrestling someone else, and that night something happened to his mask. He got so pissed, and he came back to the locker room, and he was like throwing crap around, and everyone was like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "Well, my mask broke," and the guy said, "Well, something about it," and he said, "Well, now I got to go spend $20 at Walmart again." I'm like,
God.
wait, what? Like, seriously? So that's one of the worst ones. And then I saw a guy who also wrestled, and his gimmick name, he was a really nice guy, cool guy behind the scenes, but his wrestling gimmick was, his name was the Big Cat. And yeah, now this is crazy. So he had, like, he'd draw whiskers on. For one. And his top, he had everything made, but his top, it was like he had these pullover mittens, like, and he'd pull it over his hand to, like, represent that he was a cat. Yeah, paws. And his finishing move was called the litter box.
Oh no.
So
I know where this is going.
Yeah, so like that was his finisher. So no one saw it, and the guys that we put the show on with, I won't name names because it was ridiculous. But he goes to do his finisher, and one of the parents comes up to him, and they're like, "Yeah, you don't ever do that again in front of my kid."
Oh.
Yeah, because he would sit on the person's face almost like he.
Oh.
Yeah, it was.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
That Aikens back to when Joe said, "How did I get started?" And that Wolfman guy was my very first match. If you're calling yourself the Wolfman, you should be hairy.
Yes.
Dude was bald. He didn't even have arm hair.
Wow.
The Wolfman.
He was completely bald, no beard, no nothing. And I'm like, why are you the Wolfman? And then he spit tobacco all over me, and it was friggin' disgusting.
Oh man.
Oh.
Man.
For you, Jeff, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You've been backstage, you've been shows. What is the worst rib you have seen played on someone backstage?
Oh my gosh. Oh man. Okay, so one of the worst ones was we had a guy. He was a face. He was over like crazy with the fans, and but he was always like very particular with how he had his gear and everything, and just kind of he was a very neat and organized guy.
Okay.
He was very meticulous, and everything was like a structure with him. So he'd always get to wherever we were doing a show early, and so he gets there, and he goes out to the ring, and he's like walking through stuff or talking to people. And some of the guys thought that it would be really cool to move all of his gear and everything. And they found like some very creative places to put his gear.
Oh boy.
Like his boots ended up, and we were wrestling in a National Guard armory. But his boots ended up in the kitchen. Not only in the kitchen, but in a deep freezer.
Oh.
One of his I think it might have been his tights. His tights ended up on the flagpole.
Wow.
And so he comes back, and he's like amped up, and he's smiling and speaking to everyone. And goes and he's like, oh, okay, where's my gear? And one of the guys was like, I guess you're gonna have to go find it. So they start following him around the armory, and they're like, you're getting warmer, you're on fire. And then so he gets everything, and now he's all flustered. And so he goes out, has his match and all that. And, you know, I'm thinking this has all been bad enough. You know, like what they've done to him already is bad enough. They put atomic bomb in his underwear.
No.
Yes,
Oh, no.
they rubbed atomic bomb in the crotch of his underwear.
Oh.
So what went from already a pretty significant rib ended up being like, I mean, this dude's balls are on fire because he's got atomic bomb. And you know, and I'll never forget this image for as long as I live. I've tried to forget it, and I can't forget it. I get done with my match. Like this all takes place while I'm having my match. I get back and I see this guy laying on his back in the shower, his legs up, and he just got the water just spraying down on his junk. I mean, that's the image that I saw of this guy when I got back to the locker room. So needless to say, when I saw that, I was like, okay, somebody's got to catch me up on what happened, because that doesn't make any sense. I got to know why he's, you know, washing himself like that. So yes, that's the craziest rib I've seen. I got to hear one of yours now. I got to hear it.
There's a bunch that stick out. One is we had a Yokozuna Memorial Show and a Gary Albright Memorial Show, because they're both tied in with the Samoans. And both times a decent amount of the WWE locker room showed up. And the one we did, there's a lot of ECW guys there. And the main event of the night was Kane and Undertaker versus Bradshaw and Farouk. And we're all sitting there. This is the night I met the Undertaker and damn near shit myself, because he came. You've been in the locker room, Jeff, and you go around and introduce yourself to everyone in the locker room.
Yep.
The Undertaker did that to us. He walked up and said, "Hi, I'm Mark." Not us
Wow.
going to him. He came to us, and I'm like, holy shit. And I'm sitting in the far back talking over my match with little Guido and Fujita, who spoke no English, so we're just making grunts and sounds back and forth. And Taker, Kane, Farouk, and Bradshaw in the middle of the ring, and all of a sudden I hear Kane go, "No, don't." And Bradshaw stands up and drops his towel. And he's got this baby's arm swinging from the middle. Has anyone seen my boots? And he's just walking, putting his junk in every rookie's face.
Oh, no.
I've never been so happy to be in the back of the room away from the action in my life. And everyone else is just, all the boys are laughing. And he's just doing this to embarrass all us rookies. And I'm so happy he's in the back of the room, because, I mean, he was just being blatant right in your face with it.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure they were all drinking before they got there. And the other time was the Gary Albright show. Scotty 2 Hotty and Brian Christopher were there, and they were screwing out with Nicole Bass. And at the time, she was WWE Women's Champion. And they had all these pizzas for the boys, and Kevin Kelly was the road agent for WWE. And Brian Christopher takes her championship and puts it at an empty box at the bottom of the pizza pile and will not tell her. She's supposed to go out into the ring in like 30 seconds, and she is just crying. Now, here's this 6'4" woman who can crush your head with her arm, and she is bawling. And Kevin Kelly is giving her shit, yelling at her, "How could you lose this? We're at this little shit show." People are like, "What do you mean shit show?" Because he's keeps asking who's going over. He wouldn't let any of the WWE guys job or take too many shots from the locals. And here Nicole Bass is in tears because Brian Christopher hit her championship and wouldn't give it to her until they called her name to go out. So now she's walking to the ring trying to wipe her face off, and all the boys are laughing at her. Like, I felt bad.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah, Brian Christopher was a dick.
You know what? We've got to have you back on for another episode.
Certainly.
Just to go over some more ribs.
I've seen too many.
That's awesome.
Everyone gets in the locker room and everyone reverts back to 10-year-olds.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Man, that's fantastic. Awesome. Well, listen, Shane, it has been fun. Before you go, so shout out to everybody in our community where they can find your channel, and obviously where they can find you on social media.
One of the places you can go right at the bat is bloodsource6.com. That's my Streamlabs website. It's got links to just about everything else on there. If you're on Facebook, you just search Bloodsource6 Streaming. It'll take you right to my page. And same thing with Twitch. You go on Twitch, Bloodsource6 Streaming, and it'll take you right there. Right now, just hit Google Bloodsource6 Streaming, and you'll get a wave of my stuff right now popping up, the videos I've had uploaded. I just did it myself a second ago. And I have 4 shows tonight. Tonight's my late show. We call it XFW Late Night. It goes on between 10:30 and 11 o'clock. But we've got a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night shows. And it's just kind of beside myself that all this stuff's popping up on Google. But now each individual show is showing up. So you can hit bloodsource6.com or search directly on Facebook or Twitch for Bloodsource6 Streaming.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, hey, it's always a pleasure. I'm glad we had you on. I had wanted to, I know I had mentioned you to Jeff a while ago, and I said we got to get my buddy Shane on here because I know you guys would have a lot in common. So there you go. We got some good locker room stories tonight, which you never would have heard anywhere else. So there you go. And then, like Jeff said, we'll come back and we'll do we'll do a show about locker room ribs and pranks, man.
I'll leave you with a cliffhanger. The next time you get me on, I'll talk to you about Luda Vachon and the craziness I saw with her and Dave, a.k.a. the Vampire.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Dave Heath, a.k.a. I don't remember his Dave. Now I can't remember his damn name. He's in ring. Shit.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Well, listen, good luck with all of the with all your stuff. Good luck with the stream. Like I said, I'll try to pop in there some more and check it out. I know I liked what I saw. It's a fun time. So guys, check it out. Go and check out Shane's stream. If you are into gaming, especially wrestling gaming, and I know a lot of you are, go and check it out because again, it's something different to see that's out there. And again, I know we've got a lot of wrestling content, but like Shane said, sometimes the stuff that's on the TV isn't all that great, especially now with the fans not being there. It's a lot of it's a little bit subpar. So yeah, go and check it out. He gave you the means to do that, so go right ahead and do so. And hey, man, thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate you stopping by.
Jeff, Joe, thank you for having me. This was awesome.
You got it, buddy. Anytime, man. Thanks a lot. And guys, we will see you again very soon with another interview for the Insiders. So take care, everybody, and have a good night.